We just couldn't be more grateful that someone of Rex Tillerson's proven leadership and accomplishments has been willing to step forward to serve our nation as our next Secretary of State.
Vice President-elect Mike Pence just a short time ago outside Trump Tower on President-elect Trump's high-profile pick to run the State Department. I'm joined now by someone who's known Rex Tillerson for more than a decade. Former Medtronic chairman and CEO Bill George, former board member at ExxonMobil, a senior fellow at Harvard Business School, and a CNBC contributor. Bill, good to see you again. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Let me ask you about some reporting from The New Yorker. Steve Call, who's the dean of the journalism school now at Columbia, he's written a lot about Tillerson and ExxonMobil. He writes, quote, Tillerson defied State Department policy and cut an independent deal with the Kurdish regional government, undermining the national Iraqi government in Baghdad. ExxonMobil did not ask permission. Now, the relevance of this is that at the time, the Iraqi government, actually still to this day, is largely supported by the U.S. government. So Rex Tillerson did something that was against U.S. intentions. And according to Steve Call's sources, Tillerson later told the State Department he had to do what was best for his shareholders. So the question for you is, after more than 40 years with Exxon, can he pivot? Can he do what's in the best interest of his new boss, the American people?
I think he'll pivot very quickly. Rex Tillerson is a patriot. He is a man of enormous integrity, and he's extraordinarily objective. He always says, let's look at the facts. And I think you'll see him shift quickly from his responsibilities for Exxon, where he's representing one of the great global companies of the world, based in Dallas, to the United States. And I think he'll put the Exxon interests aside and adopt 100% the interests of the United States. And he will do an excellent job as Secretary of State. He is a very unusual choice. I never thought he'd go to Washington, to tell you the truth. But he is willing to serve his country, a former Boy Scout, Eagle Scout. And I think you'll see he's like a rock, and he's not going to be pushed.
There's no criticism of his ability as a businessman. Absolutely none. But you know what I keep hearing from people is, wow, these guys, these CEOs, they know world leaders, and they travel around, and they're endlessly making deals, and they're really good at making deals. You CEOs are, with all due respect, are in it for the money. You make deals with anybody if it's profitable for you and the other person.
Well, I don't see Rex that way. Of course he's representing his shareholders. He certainly wasn't in it for his personal compensation. I used to chair his compensation committee for 5 years, and he said, Bill, you couldn't pay me enough to do this job and take the challenges I face. He was doing it because he's representing the best interest of Exxon, and I think he has to. He's elected by his shareholders and his board, and I never saw him deviate from that. But I think he will do exactly the same thing for the U.S., and he's not going to be a soft touch for Vladimir Putin or any of the rulers in the Middle East. He will stand tall and stand strong to represent the U.S. best interest, and he's a tough negotiator.
Right, and we may have some hope, actually, given his tight relationships with folks in the Middle East. We worry a little bit more. You may have heard my conversation with Jamie Rubin. We worry a little bit more about Russia because in the Middle East there's a balancing act, and it goes this way and it goes that way sometimes. Russia, it's not a balancing act. Russia for the last 3 years has been, just sort of flouting international law, invading other countries, supporting the Syrian regime, which is a brutal dictatorial regime. So it's a little bit different, right? Supporting Russia is not sort of the same as having good relations with all sorts of people.
I agree with you, and I think he'll take a very objective look at the facts. He's going to look at CIA reports and other things coming up, and certainly be concerned about what happened in Crimea and some of the things happening on the Ukrainian border. And he'll come to a recommendation for the president, and I think it'll be a very objective one. But he's not going to make that instantly. He's going to do his homework, and he's going to get on top of it. And as far as his relationship with Mr. Putin, he does not have a personal relationship with Putin. He has a professional relationship, as he does with all of these people. So it's pretty much an arm's length relationship. I once talked to him about what risk did he see after British Petroleum had been expropriated some of their assets, and Shell, and he said, Bill, we know that's a risk. We just have to perform. And so he's always kind of in that very strong position.
As you and I have been talking, the current Secretary of State has sent out, John Kerry has sent out a statement. It says, I congratulate Rex Tillerson on his nomination as Secretary of State. The department will continue to provide our full support for a smooth transition so that the incoming administration can pursue the important work of foreign policy around the world. Let me ask you this about climate change. ExxonMobil, its official position is that it is real and it is a significant threat. But Rex Tillerson has questioned parts of climate change. Exxon is also under investigation by the New York State Attorney General about whether its decades of internal research on climate science squares with what it has said publicly. Apparently, Exxon has known about climate change since the 70s, but has not said so for many, or did not say so for many years. Is this a potential trip up for Rex Tillerson?
Rex, I saw him shortly after he became CEO. He moved Exxon's position to the center on this and publicly acknowledged at the annual meeting that climate change is real, caused by carbon dioxide, and that's caused by humans and the climate. And he would say we don't know how much is caused by humans. In fact, one of the reasons he spent over $40 billion to get into shale gas, buying XCO and then adding a number of fields to that, was he saw an opportunity to reduce the carbon footprint by more than 50% and shifting from oil to shale gas, and so I think and Exxon was always very concerned about energy efficiency. They're in the fossil fuel business, no doubt, but he saw opportunities to reduce that significantly, and he availed his company of that. So I think that's to his credit. And again, he's a realist on these things. He is not ideologue at all on any of these issues about national leaders or about climate change.
Bill, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. Bill George is a former board member at ExxonMobil, and he is a senior fellow at Harvard Business School, CNBC contributor as well. All right, dangerous.